All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get started. So, is that too loud? Is it good? Okay. So, my name's Stephan Looney, and my coworker here is Tyler Jones. We're gonna kind of tell you guys a little story about how we, how we powered our network operations center with SaltStack's Enterprise UI, and just kind of how we've navigated through the journey. So we are with a company called Sterling Talent Solutions, formerly known as Sterling Backcheck. Sometimes you'll hear us call it Sterling Backcheck. It's just kind of out of habit. So we are a global background check company. So I like to say we're kind of the company that most people have never heard of, but everyone's dealt with behind the scenes, right? We have a lot of offices around 9 countries, and we've got in excess of 3,000 employees globally. We serve tens of thousands of customers. And so one of the kind of cool things about our business is that most of our infrastructure, our software, things like that are home rolled, right? So I think we should probably all share a lot of the same challenges in that regard. So I am the director of SysOps and automation. So, my team wears a lot of hats. So we have, monitoring underneath our umbrella. We have automation underneath our umbrella. We have a lot of infrastructure build outs that's kind of under our umbrella. Configuration management, a little bit of security, some patching, et cetera. And Tyler is our site reliability engineering lead. He runs most of our automation, so for North America as well as Asia Pac. So our email addresses are up there. Feel free if after this you guys have any questions, shoot us an email or look us up on GitHub, whatever. So for the handful of people that have played around with, kicked the tires with SaltStack Enterprise, you may know what it is, but SaltStack Enterprise to us is it's support. It's a lifeline back into SaltStack's mothership. It gives us this ability to phone home when we need help, right? So we aren't so arrogant to think that we can solve all of our own problems. The guys at Salt are really good about helping us, and SaltStack Enterprise is really crucial for our business in that regard. So SaltStack Enterprise includes a web interface. If you guys haven't seen it, you probably weren't at the keynote because I think they had plenty of images up of it. But SaltStack's Enterprise UI gives you a graphical interface to the underlying Salt infrastructure. And it's fast, it's been stable for us, it's been extremely reliable, and it comes in black and white, so what more can you ask for, right? So, we chose SaltStack Enterprise not just for the support, right, but for the ability to have a user interface. Myself, my team, we're all very familiar with, Python, Bash, Perl, PHP. We're developers to some degree, sysadmins to another. We're more than familiar with the command line. And so the hard thing to wrap your head around sometimes is why would I want a user interface? Because ultimately I live in a command line and I can just do it faster by typing the commands myself, right? And so the GUI for us really wasn't about me being able to go in and reboot a server, because that ultimately doesn't provide a lot of value to me personally. There's something gratifying about seeing stuff fly up a screen that the penny wheel doesn't do for me, right? And so the Enterprise UI gives me the ability to hand over level 2, level 3, engineering tasks that are repeatable to a network operations center that might not be so skilled, right? These guys don't have the experience yet. They're up and coming guys. They're younger. You don't want to give them root access to the entire environment for obvious reasons, right? So we wanted an interface to give us that ability. Tyler. So some of the things that we do, Some of the things that we do with the Enterprise UI is manage Windows, Linux, IIS, Apache, EC2 instances, some stuff in Azure, Windows services, Linux services. We've got some custom applications and whatnot that we have complex orchestrations and restarts and things like that. And we present all of these jobs. We get to, we build out our salt states, our reactors, the pillar data, things like that. We build everything that we can on the back end in advance, present this to our network operations center, and it gives them the ability to do things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do, right? So grains, pillars, orchestrations, things like that. Probably no one in the room is intimidated by any of that, but there is there's a definite user group in our community at Sterling that has no idea what any of that means, right? It doesn't mean anything to them. They're intimidated by it. They don't want any part of it. They're developers that don't want to deal with it, whatever the case may be. We're able to take these orchestrations, build them out, like I said, plug them into the back end, and present that in a graphical 2 to 3 click operation for our end users. And it makes it a very nice, easy way to not just present them with a button, right, for lack of better definitions, but it also gives us the ability to control who gets in there. It gives us the ability to audit that information, right? So we have some nice RBAC that's built in that's a little trickier to do from a command line. And then it's easy to build out runbooks, right? So we build out a lot of runbooks for this stuff for our network operations center. So take a couple of screenshots, paste them into a Word doc, throw them up on Confluence, whatever, off your end users go. So one of our early wins with the UI was patching. Patching for us, I don't know how the other teams in the room here do it, but patching for us becomes it's a weekend party. So we kind of start, everybody gets up bright and early, we jump on this conference bridge, and we have this wonderful, wonderful time patching servers. And it is a glorious, glorious, epic event where, Tyler and I, we get to hang out at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. It's nothing I'd rather be doing. Tyler and I just chilling, patching some servers, executing salt states, right? Running some commands, finding out something went sideways, but you can't quite see that. You just kind of know, you feel it because you're passionate and you enjoy it, right? You're just having all this fun, right? And so this fun will continue on all through Saturday, right? And at dinner time, we're still on this bridge and we're having dinner together virtually. It's great. Sometimes we'll actually do like a video conference, and I get to see Tyler and his kids eating pizza while we're patching, and it's amazing. It's an amazing event, right? You guys know I'm lying, right? So we start on a Saturday morning and we roll all the way through this, and sometimes we finish up on Sunday, and it just depends on the event, right? And so we all kind of sit down and we say, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way. If only we had a tool where we could present this mundane task to someone who arguably shouldn't go off and go administer our servers, but they're already online, right? They're working 24/7 in an operations center. Man, I wish we had a tool like that. Wait, we do. So we built out all of our automations. We orchestrated them. We took everything that was clustered, and we said, what? We can remove nodes from a cluster. We can patch that thing. We can put it back, and I don't have to have a human being do that. We have automation tools that do that. And I don't have to have someone that knows a command line to do that, because I can build out these beautiful little YAML files, and I can present that in a graphical means to basically an end user, right? The guy that's capable of fixing my mother-in-law's computer, but arguably I don't want him in my data center, right? I can give this to him, he can point, he can click, done. It's awesome. And so we started building out what we have referred to affectionately as non-disruptive patching. It's non-disruptive to our business, and it's non-disruptive to my sleep, and it's non-disruptive to my Saturday, unless something goes sideways. So in this whole process, we've trimmed our windows down drastically. Our maintenance windows are much shorter as a result, and consequently, we have a lot less phone calls after hours, right? So I'm able to hand this stuff over to the NOC. They've got their run books. They see an alert in, say, SolarWinds that something's down. They have a run book that says, if this is red, click this, Did it go green? Yes. Okay, it's done. I don't need to call Tyler, right? And it's amazing. It sounds so simple and it sounds so obvious, but so many of us just, we don't do it. Good. So provisioning. Does anybody in here provision servers? Virtual machines, any kind of instances of any kind? Okay. So we do a little bit of provisioning as well. Some of it's in EC2. We use CenturyLink. Consequently, we actually had to write we extended Salt a little bit, wrote a provider for CenturyLink. So if anybody's using that, there's one coming in the next version. We use Salt extensively for that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go out on a limb. So I'm going to say, about 90% probably of our infrastructure is provisioned using SaltStack from our perspective. We have some stuff that goes on in the cloud that's done in the cloud. We won't get into that. What's done in the cloud stays in the cloud. So prior to SaltStack Enterprise, when we would do server builds, either the automation team, my team would go out and we would build these servers via SaltStack or whatever, or we would let a server team just kind of go point and click and build Snowflake servers. And so everybody here knows what a Snowflake server is, right? Right? You guys have seen them. Snowflakes are beautiful out in nature. Snowflakes are not beautiful in your data center for multiple reasons, right? So we wanted to keep it consistent. And I can even take an automation, give somebody command line access and end up with 2 different servers. I don't know how, but it happens. So we actually have, and Tyler will demo this in just a few minutes, but we actually have kind of a self-service portal similar to what you might see in Amazon or things like that, that gives our users the ability to click, I want this server, go build that. I want this server, go build that. I want this kind of server, go build that. They're guaranteed to be the same. I don't care if I build that server in Amazon. I don't care if I build that server in Azure, CenturyLink, on-prem. It doesn't matter where that server gets built. It is effectively exactly the same. The underlying infrastructure shouldn't matter to anyone else. All right. So I wanted to save some time, plenty of time for Tyler to kind of go through the demo. Does anybody have any questions before we break off into that? I know I tend to talk fast. Anyone? No?
Do you have any snapshots of Salt Enterprise where we can start to see all this?
He's actually going to show it to you. So what we're, for obvious reasons, not going to show our actual production environment. We did that last year, and that was, we didn't think that through very well. So we had to do some editing before they hit YouTube. So we do have a lab. We've got it here. You can see it, and then after this, if you want to play around, you're more than welcome to.
You say you run some orchestration that you're not going to use. Is that literal Salt orchestration under the hood, underneath Enterprise, or you mean states and workloads underneath?
Okay.
The thing is, can you successfully run orchestration under Salt Enterprise?
So the question is, can we run Salt orchestrations directly from the UI? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We have access to the entire underlying SaltStack infrastructure from the UI. Do you have any actual orchestrations set up in here? I mean, kind of the cloud stuff that you're building out, technically some of that is orchestrated, but not a true traditional orchestration in the sense of a, orchestrate dot, right? No, it's a good question. Anybody else? Nobody wants to know how you do Windows patching in this thing? How do you patch Windows? You install Linux. All right, so Tyler, if you want to kick off your demo.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to show up on this, guys, so if the resolution is horrid, please let us know and we'll try to adjust for that. Yeah, is your mic on? There you go.
How does it look?
You might actually change that to would that be better with a white background, guys?
Yeah.
So for those of you who haven't seen the Enterprise UI, you do have your choice, black or white. All right, Tyler, you want to tell them what they're looking at there?
All right, so this is pretty much all your minions. This is pretty much when you log in, this is what shows first. And you could also, on the left-hand side at the top where it shows the targets, you can create custom targets. It has some predefined ones too,
So what's an example of a predefined target, Tyler?
like this Linux. That's it. When you install the UI, it automatically has a Linux target and like a Windows target, Red Hat. Then below that is the jobs. There's a few ones that are pre-installed, like the presence. It installs a beacon on the servers. They actually suggest doing that with the UI.
So what's the benefit of using the presence? Is that like a keep alive? Is that what that is?
Yeah, like every so often the beacon will fire, like right here. I think it's every 60 seconds to the vent bus, so it gets information from the minions.
Well, let's click some buttons, do something cool.
Yeah.
See if we can break something.
So you was talking about patching. This is a simple this is actually a little different. I'm actually firing an event because been playing with events a little more. So this is going to fire an event to the vent bus, and then it's going to kick off patching on this particular server. So normally you just come up here, the little salt symbol with the arrows going out where it says run job. I normally click notify job completion, job failure, and just hit run. Now, I don't know how long this patch job's going to take, so I don't know if you're going to see the full return. But normally me, I'm watching the vent bus a lot of times. But normally, like we get a group of nodes, we'll already returned. Oh, that's just the event. Never mind. So the event returned, so it should be kicking off the patching now. And also, we also do the kind of same thing when provision Windows servers. I add patching into it. I add it to the domain, add it to the certain WSS server for that server. And then it should kick off a Slack notification once it's complete.
Yeah, one of the things we did fairly early on was integrate with Slack for just kind of immediate notification. We do integrate our production environment with Splunk for reporting.
So that's not part of the web page, right? That's just part of your salt states or something?
Yeah.
Slack?
Yeah.
So Chris's question is the Slack integration, is that part of the native enterprise experience? So no, it's not part of that, but SaltStack has a native Slack returner. So it can return its events back to Slack, so we'll get the notification there.
Yeah, and so like right here with the patch, and I set up notifications for basically each step. Like you can see right now at 1404 or 205. So about a minute ago, it added the server to the domain, DNS. And then it should be rebooting and installing patches. I know we kind of use this if I don't really want to watch the event bus and trying to do other things, just kind of leave that up. We can show you some more jobs.
That way he can go out on the boat on Saturday and just watch his phone for Slack, right?
Why are you using the event stance to kick off the patching? Using event fire means goes out to the master, fire to the local bus, particularly the master, and all that you want to kick off.
It's using orchestration to do the patching. So
Well, so hold on. You want to recap his question real quick, just for the recording?
you repeat it one more time. You said,
Well, why are you using the event to trigger this?
okay.
Oh, so why are we using the event to trigger patching in and of itself? Okay,
Instead of you just do a job, say, okay, go to patching.
go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, so we wanted to use some reactors and orchestration. So when I fire that event, I can grab all the minion IDs and they can all hit the orchestration, and they all report in, and I get notifications for all the servers. How it
It's for
used-
grouping. It's easier to group the results that way versus getting individual bursts of information from each individual device.
Yeah, there's sometimes when we
1,000 nodes gets real noisy real fast, right?
Maybe you want to customize the tag.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do it from the command line, and it seemed like when I tried it this way, it works a lot better. I'm trying to think of some of the problems we've had.
So one good point to note here is the enterprise UI uses Salt's underlying API. And so if you want to get into all the deep details, find Tom. He knows a lot more about it than I do, right? But you get to skip some of the underlying noise and code by using the API. And so you can do some tests on your own, right? You can fire off against Salt's API and get a result back, and you can fire off against the CLI, and for anything that takes any significant amount of time, you will definitely see a difference in the API. I've seen it. It's pretty amazing. But that API will actually respond back a little bit faster. And it's a little bit faster, and that is compounded the more you're doing, right?
Yeah, and another reason for the orchestration also, so we do have some of our front-end servers sit behind a load balancer. We're working in to pull and being able to pull a node out of the load balancer and put it back in. And that was another reason for the orchestration and the reactors, so we can get that ID. The salt master can go out to the next scaler, pull it out, and then put it back in. So it has that job ID, already the minion ID. Yeah. So something that a NOC would probably do, and this is just a basic example up here on the enterprise. This is just restarting Apache on a server. But even a lot of times we get called for simple restarts on Windows, Linux. It don't matter. Some of the stuff is kind of old, and it's just hey, can you restart this? And we got tired of waking up in the middle of the night just to do a restart. So when this came out, I was like, no, I'm just going to throw some restarts in here so they can just log in, click restart, let it show back up in SolarWinds as green, and nobody gets called. So basically, they would log in here. They wouldn't see all the jobs. You can filter out who sees what. You can import like Active Directory groups and then filter out the jobs they see, what they can do, what they can run. So they would just come in here, click the jobs, click on Restart Apache, and by default, what I do is when I create the job, I keep it on dry run. So I know that when they went to go restart a service, that they had to unclick that to run it. So there's no mistake really. They'd have to literally unclick that.
That's your SaltStack Are You Sure button. Are you sure you want to reboot this production server at noon today? Well, yes, I am.
But yeah, so then they come in here and just click run. And then they click on the job ID and wait for it to return. And the yellow normally means it's still in progress of running. Okay, yeah, so it restarted, and it gives you the output. You can look at all the details of it. Basically, it just says it's the restart of the service. Then we have Slack notifications for that too.
You got a server build you can do there?
Yeah. So this is what his CenturyLink provider that he created. It's a custom SaltStack module. And I just put in here, it's just a basic build. It's just going to install Apache, make sure it's up to date, what have you. And we've been doing this for some of our server teams that have to build servers out there. We don't want them in there just going crazy, clicking things. And CenturyLink portal. So we set up a job in the UI for them to come in here and click and run. Though it has a little more options than what I'm showing you here. So this is just doing a salt run cloud.profile. It's going to grab that profile and spin up a server.
I don't know if you can show it here, Tyler, but one of the things we kind of ran into is, from a command line, you tend to toss a lot of variables at Salt Cloud, right? And those variables might change from system to system to system, and I'm sure you guys are a lot like us, right? You don't have 3 server types that you're going to build, right? You don't say, well, okay, I'm going to build a Linux box. It's going to be a LAMP stack. I'm going to build a Windows 2008 R2 server, and I'm going to build a Windows 2016 server, right? Those are the only 3 things I have in my environment. So you want a base configuration, and then you want to be able to throw some parameters at it. And so that's one of the early options, early features in the Enterprise UI is the ability to throw some pillar data at your builds. Through the UI, you can actually kind of craft that out a little bit in advance, build a little bit of some framing, and I don't know if Tyler had the pleasure of doing that for this, but it was really kind of another game changer for us, was the ability to say, okay, well, I got a 2012 server that I want built, but I want Microsoft SQL Server on that because I'm actually standing up a temporary database, right? Or I want to install IIS on this box, right? Or I don't want you to install anything, I just want a base build and I'm going to go tinker with it, right? The same goes for Linux. So the beauty is you can kind of frame out some of what you would consider a base build, or maybe some kind of a golden image that you might use, some kind of a, like a template or whatever, and then you can use your pillar data to customize that.
Where do you do that in the UI?
So yeah, Tyler, can you show where that's done?
You talking about pillars?
Mm-hmm.
Showing pillars?
Yeah, the pillars.
Yeah, normally you would put so in the job, you would put your pillars in here. You just have to write it in JSON, not YAML. I don't really have many examples in here right now because it's just a demo server. I don't think I have an example.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so this is the actual basic Linux build. That's when the server teams guys may come in here and run. It's not exactly the same, but it's the same concept. So they just come in here and run it. The same thing with the NOC. That's the only jobs they see. They can't go and go restart services on some other server. That one may take a while, because that's your provider. A few minutes, it should return and show some information about the server.
Any questions on that so far? Sure.
Saturday patching, so you patching like say 500 servers with these things, and out of that some environmental problem causing the same local haywire, and then an emergency break on it to stop it.
So the question is, when we're having our Saturday patching party, and we're patching 500 or 1,000 servers, is there a, things are going sideways, we need to stop now, kill switch? And the answer to that is not really. I mean, so you do have a job ID, and you can kill that. You can kill the job. Windows patching being what it is, specifically with Windows, it's a little easier problem to solve in Linux, right? Linux is a little bit more forgiving. In a Windows world, the problem is that you have an executable that's running, and a lot of times, if you've ever watched a Windows Server patch, especially in the newer iterations, it downloads what it needs, which we pre-stage. So we test for sufficient storage, right? It's part of our process, make sure we've got enough storage to deploy. And then typically on Thursday or Friday, we pull all of our payloads down to every server we intend to patch. That way when we patch, it's fast. It's already sitting there local. That said, once the patch process is started, a lot of times you end up with this kind of, you've seen it, the little screen, right? Your server's rebooted, it's kind of pending this reboot, and there's not much of a way to kill that. You could pull the plug, but it's kind of up in the air as to what your results might be, right? So if the process hasn't spawned on this particular instance, if you have the process set to batch, like if you're batching in chunks of 50, and you killed it, then this, the sequential batch is following the one that you're on would not execute. But killing a patch it's not really a Salt thing, that's more of a Microsoft thing. I probably wouldn't kill a patch.
I understand that, but something is like inside this enterprise GUI, you can't run something to job.
You cannot. You could actually set up, it's kind of funny, you gave me an idea, you actually could set up a job there to do that and use pillar data to pass your JIT in. So you could actually copy paste the JIT into a Salt command that you add to the UI. You can add as many jobs you want in there that do anything you want. Does that make sense? Yep.
What challenges have you run into?
Specifically with the UI?
The whole process overall.
I think,
Doc into the mix, bringing into probably more people than technology.
so we had a twofold problem, right? So part of that is your people and your process, right? So how do I define this process? How do I get my NOC to want to take on something that I was previously responsible for, right? They already get a bunch of phone calls. Why do they want more, right? Aside from the fact that's what we pay them for, but they, we had to build out these run books, right? And we were going to have to build out these run books anyway. We had really, at this time was a perfect time for us. We had switched NOC providers, and so it really was kind of easy, but it was work, right? So you got to build out these run books, and you got to say when you see we see this behavior or this alert, or you get this email, this is what you're going to go click. And so you're going to go take some screenshots, right? Because we weren't expecting our end user to find this intuitive. We weren't expecting them to understand necessarily what it was that they were doing. We expected them to, follow a run book, right? Click the buttons, and as you do it repeatedly, you start kind of understanding what it is. So there was that technical challenge. And then really the next technical challenge, or the next challenge was really kind of a technical one and more of a thought process from our perspective, from our team. And it's what all can we do with this thing? What makes sense to do with this thing? How are we going to use it amongst our team? How are we going to share this with other teams? And then how can we get other teams to adopt this thing, right? So how do we get our DevOps guys to want to go build a server using our UI versus going out to Amazon's console directly, right? So we kind of had those challenges, and really what it boiled down to was ease, right? This is ridiculously simple. You can go click this, this, and this, and this, and if you want to live life in a difficult way, then go do it the way you were doing it before, and that's okay. And we found that, as time goes on, more and more people adopt it and embrace it. Does that answer your question, or did I dance all around it?
No, you're fine.
Any other questions? Did that finish? Tyler, did you get a Slack yet?
What's
No?
that?
I was just asking if that build finished yet.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting on it.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Tyler, you have anything else you want to show us?
Well, I kind of need a Linux server to finish.
So the problem is that the provider that this is running on, we're hitting that at the busiest day, or busiest time of day. The particular data center that's sitting in right now with that cloud provider is extremely busy just before 5 p.m. Eastern. So it's kind of a long story.
There it goes.
There we go.
Well,
That particular provider has a queue depth of 50 work item threads, and which doesn't sound catastrophic except for the fact that's shared across the entire data center, not just one customer. So if somebody spins off 150 VMs, I have to wait until they're done. So depending on how long their builds take. So That's not us, that's not Salt, that's a cloud provider. So where is it at right now? What's it showing you?
Trying to see if it's installed. It should install Salt,
Okay. Are you gonna try to ping it?
but I think I named it the same thing.
That's fine. So these are just some of the problems that we've solved internally using the Enterprise UI. And SaltStack Enterprise just as a whole, like I said, we've had Salt support call us and tell us that there's a fix for something we didn't even know was broken. So the support that we get from the team at SaltStack has been just phenomenal. We can't say enough good things about them. And if you haven't looked at the UI seriously, I would actually recommend it. Any other questions? Does anybody want to see anything else as he just kind of tinkers around here and tries to get a server to respond to him?
Yeah, I named it the same thing. Yeah.
Did it come up? I can't see it from here.
Yeah, I named it the same when I did it earlier.
Oh.
I didn't change the name.
Demos. Don't try this in production.
No, this is different. Yeah, so that's the old one. Crap.
So is this just for production, or do you have multiple environments?
So is this just for production? No. So we have a dev environment that we do all of our tinkering and playing around in. We'll expose it to other teams and let them tinker and play and help with product adoption. And then we also have a production environment that is it's a one-to-one mimic-ish. It's a little scaled down, but
I'm just kind of going through, show you some of the other things that the UI has. It has different graphs and stuff. You can kind of see, like this is your OS, your different OSs, gives you a percentage of what's in your environment. There's also, you can look at your minion versions, kind of give you an idea of that. Right now, all these are on the same version. Got job history. You can look at all jobs. There's the thing with this also, if you look at the job history, the thing about it will also show CLI jobs that users on the Salt Master are running, in addition to what the UI is showing. So you're seeing everything that everybody's doing, even what Salt's doing. You can see certain jobs that are set up to run. It'll show some of those results, and you could drill down. Define what you want, certain targets. If you want to just look at Linux, you can see only Linux jobs. I won't see that. You can look at your key states. Shows you what you have accepted or rejected, denied.
That's definitely a great little snapshot. It's a great little snapshot. It's a great way to just kind of quickly glance and see what's in your environment. All right, I think we're probably getting pretty close to time. Are there any other questions or anything else that anybody'd like to see or? No? Yes, sir.
Run different Salt Enterprise UIs for dev and production?
So do we run different environments for dev and production? No. No, we really haven't. We have a dev environment that is designed more for us to play in, and it is literally a playground, an actual sandbox for us. We use the singular environment as a single pane of glass, then we just use our rules to keep people out of what they shouldn't be in and to be able to run the jobs that they can. We use RBAC probably beyond its capabilities. So we're pretty paranoid about people doing things they shouldn't. But no, we actually use a singular environment. Our Salt infrastructure behind the scenes is actually separated out pretty nicely. But as far as the UI is concerned, no, it's a singular UI environment. That's a good question. Anybody else? Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. We appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, please let us know.